is our garden. My father is cultivating some stuff like tomatoes, pumpkins, a lot of potatoes. And this is all polluted, heavily polluted. How does it make me feel being a neighbor of 3M company? I don't like them being my neighbors, but they are. I use stuff of 3M which I don't want to, but it's just like that. I have no other option. They're everywhere. My entire family is highly affected by that stupid chemical.
You may not realize it, but almost everyone has some level of PFAS in their bloodstream because these products are everywhere in our everyday environment. PFAS is the umbrella term for thousands of different kinds of chemicals. They're known as forever chemicals. They are man-made chemicals used in thousands of different kinds of products. They are miraculous chemicals. You can't find a better coating, for instance, to make your jacket waterproof. They've made our lives convenient in many ways, from the food you eat, to the sofa you sit on, to the rain jacket you put on when you go outside. But the problem is, they don't degrade in the environment, and they're almost impossible to get rid of. They accumulate in soil, rivers, drinking water, and in the bloodstream of people who are exposed to them. And now PFAS chemicals are associated with a range of health problems, hormone and immune disorders, thyroid malfunctions, but as well high cholesterol and diabetes, kidney problems, and even a diminished vaccine efficacy. 3M maintains that these chemicals are not harmful to human health in the levels detected in the environment. But of course, that really depends on where you're talking about. In some areas, particularly around the factories that they have, the levels detected in the environment are incredibly high. "3M is a global corporation, a conglomerate that makes a wide range of products. Everything from its flagship product, Scotchgard, to protect fabric and your sofa. It makes Post-it notes. It makes N95 masks, but it also makes everyday products that are not branded. 3M has billions in sales and factories in different parts of the world. 3M's factory is located on the banks of the River Scheldt in the city of Antwerp. It is part of Europe's biggest chemical cluster. A highway separates that chemical cluster from what is a suburban farming community. 3M began operating in Belgium in the 1970s and started making PFAS there in 1976. Now, it stopped making PFAS there in 2002, but in those intervening years, it contaminated the surrounding area. Those people living just behind the 3M factory were exposed to the PFAS emissions from that plant, including from the air and the soil and the water. And it's had a really devastating impact, both on the people who live and work there.
I live, let's say, 500 meters away from the chemical plant of the 3M company. I live here with my family, 3 children, my husband, my parents just across the door, my brother across the street, and that's me. So we live here for 5 generations long. And they tell me, just like 2 years ago, maybe it's better that your children don't play outside and that you clean your house 2 times a week in a really proper way, because we know that We produce a chemical, and it's in your house, it's in your garden, and it's not good for your children. I don't want to expose my children to those chemicals. So everybody was like, move, move. And I was like, why? I already exposed them in huge amounts just by holding them, just by being pregnant, just by feeding them. I exposed them as a mom. So I breastfed my daughter for at least a year, 6 months to a year. And I was happy. It was fine, everything was fine, and suddenly she becomes 4 years old, and not everything was fine any longer. She has a problem. According to outside world, she's slightly disabled. Why? Because she had the shortness of oxygen in her brain, and some things are not working that well anymore. Maybe the problem is caused by that chemical company? Maybe not. Is she dying? No. Will she get cancer? Who knows? I don't know. I don't know how bad it is, and nobody knows. Nobody. Even 3M. They say they don't know. But I give her a huge amount of that kind of chemical because I thought, yeah, it's good to breastfeed. Why not? It's easy. Nice, easy. It's nature, It's just like, what you're supposed to do as a mom. I didn't do anything wrong.
So we eliminate PFAS through loss of blood or in the urine, but one of the biggest ways of eliminating PFAS is through pregnancy and breastfeeding, which is incredibly worrisome. That means that children have some of the highest exposures because mothers pass PFAS from their bloodstream onto their fetuses. And children are incredibly vulnerable to contamination because their organs are still developing, their biochemistries are still evolving. Some scientists describe this to me as a ticking time bomb for future generations. This contamination might never have come to light if not for a plan to build a multi-billion euro tunnel and highway project that was due to pop out right next to 3M's factory in Antwerp. The plan required the digging up of tons of soil and river silt and being moved to different parts of Belgium. The decision to move all this soil to other parts of Flanders led activists to start scrutinizing what's in the soil. And two activists came across some documents that they've requested from the State Highway Company and from Flemish regulators and discovered that the soil being dug up near the 3M factory was heavily contaminated with PFAS.
In the middle of this environmental report on the sanitation report for 3M, I find what's pretty much a photocopy of groundwater measurements from 2000s. And my first reflex is like, oh, there's a problem with the decimal comma or point. I was thinking, they misplaced it, so it's like 1,000 times too much, or it must be. But it wasn't. It was like, 250,000 micrograms per liter, I think. Just so staggeringly high. I'd never seen numbers like that, even, in these international reports. And that's, that was loose in the groundwater underneath 3M. If we go by the current data and the knowledge from the European Food Safety Administration, they get to like a norm around 4 nanograms per liter for drinking water. Now, what we saw there was something that was in the order of a couple of 100 million times that. That's what we're talking about.
Now, this caused a chain of events that caused a huge political scandal. What came out was that the state-owned highway company had done a secret deal with 3M that would enable them to deposit the most contaminated and polluted soil onto 3M's factory site to build what they called a security wall on a site that previously didn't need any kind of security wall. And the catch was that they could move contaminated soil as long as it served a function.
And if you look at the permit for it, there's no indication that's actually storage for polluted soil. It's just not in there. So this roundabout actually contains really heavily polluted PFAS soil. So technically it's an illegal waste dump, but because it's already in here, they're basically saying, oh, we're not, it's a done deal. We're not gonna bother, getting it out if it's even possible. So this is a whole problem, in this area with the tunnel construction company, is they're trying to create situations where it's impossible to rectify it.
There was a public outcry. Activists then crowdfunded to start testing the bloodstream of certain residents who lived near the factory for PFAS. And when those results came out in August 2021, it caused mayhem because many of those people that they tested, and just at random, had incredibly high levels of PFAS in their bloodstream. In one case, a woman in her 60s had levels that were comparable to industrial wastewater. So 3M has been churning out varieties of PFAS chemicals since the 1950s, but it began doing studies in the 70s that made them realize that these chemicals were highly toxic, including 2 studies in the late 1970s on monkeys, which were disclosed as part of a lawsuit in 2018. It was being sued for harming the health of residents of Minnesota who lived near 3M's headquarters. They found high levels of PFAS in drinking water, particularly those people who had wells on their property. And they noted higher rates of cancer and leukemia in residents that lived nearby. In 2018, 3M agreed to settle a lawsuit brought by the state of Minnesota by paying $850 million without admitting any wrongdoing. In 2000, 3M announced it would stop producing longer-chain PFAS as a precautionary measure, saying the chemicals were safe, but they announced that they would be replacing them with shorter-chain equivalents that they said were safer. Those are now believed to be potentially equally dangerous to the environment and to human health because they're highly mobile and they spread in the environment more easily.
They tried to project a societal, corporate responsible view, But in the end, they've known since the 80s how toxic this product was.
I think it's really disappointing that 3M reached this agreement to pay $580 million to the Flemish government, but so many of the residents are left in limbo, worried about their health, worried about their kids, worried about their house prices, worried about their surrounding environment, and very little has been done.
Now they say, don't play outside, don't eat your vegetables. I'm like, It's your child. How I can tell my child, please, don't walk with your bare feet. Don't touch the soil because it's polluted. It's impossible. And now I have to say, don't touch that apple. don't touch, don't do, it's poison. And then they're like, is it a fairy? No, it's not a fairy, it's real life. We cannot eat those apples. It's poison. Don't